What's going on, guys? So today we're going to be doing something fun. So roughly 2 months ago I had this car aligned. Over summer I wasn't in school, so I didn't have access to the alignment rack that they have there. So I went and got it aligned, and I'm not going to say that the tech did the best job that he could. When I got the car back, they fixed the steering wheel because it sat a little bit off to the left. So when I was driving straight, the wheel was actually kind of at an angle. They fixed that. It's sort of straight-er. It's not perfectly straight. And the car still pulls a little bit to the right. So I looked at the alignment spec sheet and everything seemed to be in spec, but the steering wheel wasn't as straight as it could have been. So in the next few weeks I'm going to go in and align this car myself because, I mean, everyone has bad days, I understand that. But I want this alignment to be as perfect as it can be, and I wasn't really satisfied with how the guy did it. So they said in a couple months I could go back there and recheck the alignment basically, but I really don't want to do that. I don't know, maybe that guy was having a really bad day, something like that. But the specs were on and the car still pulls. So basically I'm going to be going through and checking some things that could cause a pull that are not alignment angles. First off, I already checked the tire pressures when I was at work today. The rears are set to 35, the fronts are now set to 32, so imbalanced tire pressure pull is not what it is, because I checked it. The car was still pulling after the tires were set to their proper pressure. That being said, they were off a little bit, so it sort of corrected it a little tiny bit. It pulls a little tiny bit less than it did. It's still pulling, so I'm going to get the car up, the wheel off, and I'm going to check things like the wheel bearings, see if this one has a little bit more resistance than the driver's side one, and we're going to be checking for a brake pull. So some things that can happen with that are the little sliding pins that the caliper slides on may not be greased enough, so it might be catching and not causing the caliper to release all of the way. Same thing with the caliper itself, the piston might sort of be binding up or getting kind of stuck. So we're basically just going to pull it off and take a look at it, make sure everything looks good. Now on to the really fun thing. That, my friends, is a M12 by 1.5 thread tap. So I am very careful with putting lugs on. If you guys watch the wheel removal and install video, I go over that basically in depth on how I like to do it, which causes basically no binding. I don't impact it on or anything, I just thread it on by hand. That being said, the previous owner, whoever worked on it for the previous owner, didn't do as good of a job as I would like. It took me taking the wheel off and putting it back on one too many times for the lugs not to go back on. So we're basically going to be tapping one of the lug threads to clean up and hopefully fix the issue. If not, I might just replace both front wheel bearings to prevent any issues. You know, it's a good maintenance item to do. It might correct the pull, but we'll see. So gotta have all 5 lugs on there if I'm going to be ripping this thing. So I've been cruising pretty conservatively for the last couple of days because I haven't been able to get that lug back on properly. Look at that nastiness. That is not a good looking thread, my friends. Basically going to be starting with the worst. Retapping is one of the worst feelings. That's pretty smooth now. So this isn't really a DIY, honestly, because I'm not comfortable enough with just rethreading these to be able to explain everything. This is like probably the 3rd or 4th time I've retapped a thread. So when I get more comfortable with it, you guys will get a DIY on retapping. And I think that might have done it. Let's get one of these in here. So it felt like at the end, it was lining up with the old threads. Oh yeah, that is so nice. There we go. So with that, I couldn't even thread it in before. Like, I couldn't get any of the threads to catch. So that is freaking brilliant right there. Alright, man. Alright, 6. And now we have all of our lugs back. I was driving around with like 4 lugs for probably only 2 days. But still, it's like, you know, I do drive kind of sporty and sort of spirited. It kind of sketches me, so I definitely had to detune my driving style because it was kind of sketchy, you know what I mean? over here decided he wanted to do all 4 brakes. And that moment when you're too lazy to go and figure out what size it is, so you watch your own DIY to figure out what size the rear caliper housing bolts are. Alright, we out here. Gotta find a 7mm. So, sad day. RIP. So when we did that DIY for Zane's brakes, Zane actually had his own little toolkit. And we used his 7mm for some reason, and we used the rest of my tools for basically everything else. Turns out that little reason is I don't have a 7mm Allen key at all that I could find. Come on, come on. I can do this. I can do that. I can take all of this out. I can do all that. I can do all of this, everything. I can manual swap it. I can rebuild a motor. I can do everything. I can't do brakes by myself. At least I got my lug back. At least I have 5 lug nuts now instead of 4. I can live with a mild pull. I cannot live with knowing that I only have 4 lug nuts. So I fixed that today. I will be back in a couple of days, which for you guys will actually be like right now. We out here, and I was just sort of messing around, and I think I might have figured something out. Check this out. So this is the driver's side. See how long that took? And here we have the passenger side. So it doesn't spin as freely as the driver's side does. So I'm thinking, again, either it could be the brakes dragging or it could be the wheel bearing. So I'm going to pull the wheel off and I'm going to lubricate the brakes. I'm going to run the piston back in a little bit and then readjust it. And hopefully that'll correct it. And if it doesn't, we might be replacing some wheel bearings soon, boys. It doesn't have any play in it, which is a good sign. Got myself a Swag Nasty 7. Yeah, that pin was really freaking dry. It has grease at the top of it. Look at that. That slide's mint, dude. Like before, you saw it wasn't sliding like that with the wheel on it. So I'm thinking that's what it was. Like honestly. Got some stout meat on these pads still. I'm going to try and compress the caliper back into the housing a little tiny bit, just so it'll sort of readjust. And then we need to get some grease on these sliding pins because these things are freaking dry. So there is some grease on it, but I'm going to put a good bit more because like most of it, there's like a ring right here. And that's about it. So I'm going to put a good bit more on here. And hopefully that will resolve the issue at hand. I mean, it spins pretty freely, so it wasn't like slowing down like it was a minute ago when we had the wheel and caliper on it. That's how it's done. Some nice grease on there. Just get it all over everywhere. You guys already know I don't like going in dry on anything, so we just gotta freaking smack that up with the nasties. Young wheel back on. That does spin a lot better. A lot better. So now that it's actually spinning like that, I know the wheel bearing is not bad. One thing to note though, I have not turned the car on and pressed on the brake yet, so the brake system is not even touching the rotor right now. So that is just it spinning freely by itself with 0 resistance on it, besides the resistance in the wheel bearing already, which is just natural. So I'm going to start it up, pump on the brake a few times. Alright, so that should have been enough to get the braking system to adjust. It'll be where it needs to be as for like drag and stuff, because the brake pads actually sort of coast on the rotor a little bit. They just sort of kiss it when they're not engaged. So we got it readjusted. Yeah, it's not looking as good as the other one was. So here's the passenger side for reference, or the driver's side. I mean, it's better, I think. I don't know. I don't know if that did an improvement, if that made it better. I think it's spinning a little bit better, and I'm wondering if the piston inside the caliper is starting to like bind up, because that might cause it. So like if the last person who did the brakes on it didn't push the caliper in evenly, they sort of pushed it by the bottom or the top, or sort of janked it crooked and dragged it in, that could be causing that. But it's definitely not the wheel bearing, it's definitely something to do with the brakes, because it's better, but I'm pretty sure that's what's causing the pulls. So I'm gonna go drive it now, and I will give you guys an update on if it actually made an improvement or not. Weird, man. I don't know. So after this, if it still pulls, I'm probably gonna pull the caliper apart, pull the piston out, see if there's any like binding or scoring on it, anything that would indicate that it's starting to seize or is seized. It's like it wanders. It's sort of, you let go of the steering wheel and like maybe 4 or 5 seconds later it starts to drift to the right, you know? So maybe that fixed it, maybe it didn't, I don't know. We'll have to see. Thank you guys so much for watching. Keep it fresh, and I will see you guys later.
You should take it slow.